What a day. Who said the AC75s can't match race? Unbelievable. INEOS Team UK are straight through to the Prada Cup final, the Challenger Series for the 36th edition of the America's Cup. And oh my gosh, guys, I have the best guest today to talk to us about the AC and winning it. Stand by. This is the AC Chat and Wrap Show. Welcome everybody. I'm so excited to have you here for our AC Chat and Wrap Show. What a race. That was the best race we've had so far by a country mile, I have to say. I don't think it really mattered to us as viewers who won. 9 lead changes. It was incredible. I had to wait a little while for my pulse to come down. But in the meantime, I've managed to get my good friend and America's Cup expert on the line. Not only has he competed in the America's Cup 5 times, he has won it once. He broke the drought for Australia in 1983. He's a multiple world champ and he knows a lot of the guys who are out there racing today. He's actually won a world championship with Ben Ainsley before. So without further ado, with us, we have John Bertrand. Welcome to the show. So nice to have you with us yet again. How was your day watching that racing?
Let's face it, there was really just one cross at the finish, so you couldn't get anything closer than that. Obviously the Brits, Ben and INEOS UK had their issues with the Cunningham. They were sailing different modes as a result, but the net was fantastic racing. Great for the America's Cup, great for the sport of sailing.
Oh, it was absolutely phenomenal, John. And I know we were both sitting there as they were postponed, wondering what might happen. And when the win happened, or even when the crosses were happening, we were texting each other. It was so exciting. Weird not to be there, but great to be able to still be involved.
That's right. And the wind was coming off the land, of course. And so big chefs, Ian Murray, let's face it, the race committee had their hands full in endeavouring to get something that was a half decent course. As it turns out, it was. The delays were better certainly for the event, not so much for the viewers around the world, but that's the reality of the sport of sailing. The only thing you can't control in this business is Mother Nature. And but anyway, it came off. Big shifts out there. I'd say 15, maybe 20 degree shifts, and big changes in wind pressure as well. So it was a tactical race personified today. Very rarely do you see that in the world of America's Cup. Everyone talks about speed differences and so on and so forth. Yes, that's all part of the deal. But by golly, this was a race between two very, very good teams today. And INEOS just got in there effectively by 1 boat length. Pretty impressive.
Yeah, indeed. I mean, did you think there might be a penalty there just to make the race even more exciting? I was thinking, oh my gosh, how close can it get?
Well, I thought it was close, but not as close as Jim was hoping, Jimmy. But regardless, it was close. These boats were coming at each other at 40 knots, but they just had it, and that was it.
Yeah, exactly. They just had it. And I think what we'll do now is go and have a little look at the graphic of the race statistics from the race. John, if you can bear with me just to share this with our viewers. I mean, as you said, 45 knots when they crossed there, but a top speed to INEOS in that race of 50.29 knots. Apparently they went over that barrier 3 times. But you've noted they sailed further in the race overall, but just maybe a little bit quicker.
Yeah, well, I think it would appear, one of the aspects one would assume anyway is that they had to preset their Cunningham. They didn't have a hydraulic control system that was working. We saw that with the delays before the start. And so they really had an upwind mode and downwind. They were needing to sail higher, but further in distance, but higher, so that the mainsail wasn't too flat for the too flat for the wind speed, or apparent wind speed going across the mainsail. So that was a compromise, but you know what? I think the biggest issue were the wind shifts out there, both upwind and downwind. and we saw massive changes in the leads, not only in the number of times the boats changed in lead, but also distances, just by the leverage that they had. One side of the course to another, not very large. It's a small course in terms of the amount of runway you've got, but you get dial in a 15-degree shift and extra wind pressure, and it's game over. So they did a hell of a job in keeping both boats hanging in there. And as I say, the final cross was about one boat length, and that was it, right to the finish.
Unbelievable. And I mean, the crosses, you talk about 9 lead changes. That's happening at a speed that is very different to when you were racing the America's Cup. I mean, the development that has happened throughout the Cup across the years has really driven sailing to completely new levels. What do you think about this Cup and what it's done for sailing?
Well, our races were 2.5 hours long. And so one race per day. These races are 20 minutes for television, but great for the worldwide audience. So it's a game changer. And the onboard cameras, and I must say the audio coming off the boats. I'd love to hear more audio coming off the boats relative to the commentators. I know they get pretty excited about it, but the purity of the audio, unlike the world of golf or tennis where you just don't hear anything off the courts of any substance, we've got it all. So if we can hear more in that regard, that would be great. But it's a new game, and I've often said, like with our Australia 2 effort, we're the first to win the America's Cup from the Americans after 132 years of competition. So it was a big deal, and we're on a new S-curve, as McKinsey's would say, in terms of development in many ways. But from my perspective, having competed in the Olympics and America's Cups, all we do know is that, like say 10 or 20 years time, the game will be much more sophisticated. So you look at our project way back when in 1983 compared to now, it's just a new world. The thing I love is that in 20 years' time, we'll look at these pictures and think, how naive was that compared to where we are in 20 years' time? Yeah. This game is changing so much. And that's the application of technology and really smart people and obviously money to make it all work. The application of Formula One world, it's, these boats are now, they're aero and hydro vehicles in many ways. And, it's a new world. Very exciting. I think it's great. I love it.
Yeah, I love it too. It's absolutely incredible. But going back to what you said about the communications on board and the communication that we've heard between Giles and Ben, I know you've sailed with Ben. I know you know what a great sailor he is, but it sounds like they've got something going that's really strong. And my best bit from today in listening to the onboard comms was listening to him say, "We're back in phase. Let's extend." Yeah. And basically from that moment, they had the race.
Yeah, that's true. It's good observation. These guys are cool. People, I think, don't fully understand Giles's record. Like, he's dominated the International Olympic Fin class for years as in world champion and Olympic gold medalist. He just demolished the fleet in Rio in 2016. The guy's a magician, highly competitive. I know Giles very well. And Ben, of course, is the greatest Olympian that the world's ever seen. A silver and then 4 Olympic gold medals in succession, 5 Olympic Games. The finals at the London Olympics, of which he won the gold, he was having cortisone injections into his lower back to keep him going. You're talking about a guy that's tough. This guy is tough. Such was the pain that he was going through. He couldn't sail fin beyond that. Yeah. So you're dealing with 2 world-class operators, and they've sailed together a long time. Now that they've got boat speed, at least against the challengers, it'll be interesting, one, if they get through, but secondly, how the Kiwis stack up. But that combination on this very tricky race course, which it is, the wind shifts and the wind pressure changes, it'll be a formidable duo that they've got. What we are seeing is the strength of communication and the strength of a tactician having the ability to have his eyes out of the boat, in addition to the helmsman, which in this case is one of the world's greatest sails ever in Ben Ainslie.
Yeah, indeed. And we've spoken about it quite a bit over the past few days on my channels and in our shows. The setup that they have with the grinders looking out, I mean, that's how they saw that there was a Cunningham issue today, because they've each got individual monitors as well. And you could see it pop up on the monitor. We've got a Cunningham issue.
Right.
There's, you can have one person come off the grinder and go and do something, and you've still got three going on each side. I mean, it's a great setup, but as you so wisely pointed out, it then gives them Giles. So they've got 6 or 7 people doing what 8 people are completely locked in doing on the other boats. That seems to be a key separator that's making them more innovative.
Yes, well, it's certainly innovative. It was a risk, it would appear, but talking to the INEOS team, they're comfortable with the decision they made. They're getting away with it, and they do have a dedicated tactician. And again, if it was more straight line sailing, it wouldn't be such a big deal. But because the wind shifts are so extreme, offshore breezes, and the land affects the stability or instability of the wind, and also the pressure changes, then it's a big deal. It's it's no different to any one design racing out there. You see massive changes and massive opportunities if you're in so-called in phase with the wind.
Indeed.
It's great stuff.
You actually said to me when we first got onto this call just before we went live that it was like watching an Edgels race. It was so exciting. It was just crossing and one thing goes wrong.
Absolutely.
And yeah, gosh, it was good.
Well, we saw coming off the line, the boats are pretty locked in. There's this bug roll difference in speed with those settings that those guys had today. And we saw, higher speeds upwind and downwind, certainly downwind with Ben's boat, but they had to sail a longer course. But the net is the overall, competitive nature of those two boats was basically one design sailing. So, you're dealing with such technology that's been created in isolation all around the world, the US project, the British project, the Italian project, and they've come together. And we saw today, it's like one design racing. How cool is that? At the highest level, sailing along it, going uphill nearly 40 knots and downhill, in some cases, over 50 knots.
It's pretty incredible when you think that everyone's gone away with a problem and come together with a very similar solution. And I know that you're really good friends with Grant Simmer, who is the CEO of INEOS Team UK. You sailed on Australia 2 with him. So you guys are no stranger to coming out with something exceptionally different and innovative. The changes are a little bit more minute here. And a lot of it, as we've been saying and hearing on the broadcast as well, is that it's probably underneath the hood in the software, in the finer fixings and smaller components. It's a completely different world, but it's all development, isn't it? That's what the America's Cup is about.
It really is, and the learning curves are still going up. There's nothing flattening off. And the same with the Kiwis. They'll be learning, and also, they can actually accurately define the speed of these boats, and they know very accurately the wind speed and wind pressure, so they can put it into their computers. And most of this stuff now is done in computer simulations, and it's the algorithms that they use within the software. That's really a key part. I suspect, and I'm speculating, and I can say I'm speculating because I haven't talked to Grant on this, but I suspect that before at the Christmas series, they were off their pace. This is INEOS in terms of their computer predictions and the way they were sailing the boat compared to what they are now. Almost certainly they've made changes both in the aerodynamics, the aero package, which is the particularly mainsail settings, and I suspect jib as well, and then the whole hydrofoil scene, which is the whole wing world, and subtle changes, in some cases fairly large changes. The net is that what the changes they've made, there's been improvements in performance. In a lot of cases, when you're sort of battling in the dark, you're pressing so hard, in some cases at least, you make changes and your performance goes off. But these guys, it would appear they're actually, the software is giving them the right direction in terms of the computer simulation of these boats. So that's really, that's pretty good, because I think one of the major differences we've seen with the Kiwi program is that their software simulation packaging has been extremely accurate, and all great credit to the Kiwi in terms of their innovation. It's a great story. The whole Kiwi project's a great story.
Yeah. They did incredibly well leading into Bermuda. They had the problem. They solved the problem with the cyclaws that we saw. So the America's Cup really is all about that. You get given a problem by the defender. You go and solve it as the challenger. Hopefully you become the challenger and have the best solution to that problem to fight them back, essentially. So you've had experience with that with Australia too. And what we've seen this week is people pushing themselves and their boats to the limit with New York Yacht Club's American Magic, for example.
I think I'm not out of school, but Glenn Ashby, who's a terrific friend and one of the masterminds behind the Kiwi project, he said that when you go into the design studio of Team New Zealand, it looks like a high school revisited. Oh, wow. The people are so young. And one of the conclusions they got out of the Bermuda project, and they did an amazing job because they ran out of money 2 years before. They had no money. They were about to close the syndicate down, and they eventually got some more funding, and away they went, is that they concluded at least half the organisation had to be new to the America's Cup if they were to be successful. In other words, you cannot go into this world on the basis that this is how we've always done in the past. So we've got to employ young people who have no fear to think outside the box of what's the next world, what's the next generation. It's a little bit like, what are these projects going to look like in 20 years' time, and apply that thinking to now. So that's typical Kiwi innovation, in my opinion, because their budgets are much less than the challengers. But by golly, they're doing a hell of a job in terms of this whole race. So good, well done. Good luck to them.
It's a bit like the goal setting theories that people have, where you set the goal and the solution, and then you backtrack from there to the problem, I guess.
That's right. And then you dial in people like Peter Burling, who's World Yachtsman of the Year. He and Ben, these characters, they're absolute top of their craft worldwide. Great sense of empathy for wind and water, and you're Peter Burling. But these guys aren't going to miss a trick when they sail whoever it is, the challenger, out on that track, because this is basic wind shift, wind pressure sailing, as well as the technology that they have available to them. So it's a pretty interesting package. Yeah.
It's incredible, and no doubt Emirates are continuing to develop and innovate while they're watching these other boats racing. So it's going to be a massive matchup when we see the Challenger Series finish off. So INEOS Team UK are now straight through. Prada will face off against New York Yacht Club, American Magic, who are meant to be on the water on Tuesday. I know you've had some mishaps over your time in the America's Cup because we're all pushing our boats forward, but do you think they can get back on the water, and do you think they can beat Luna Rossa Prada Pirelli?
Well, they showed great speed at different times. Obviously, before the Christmas series, they were the gun boat coming out of that series. They had their issues at the last effort, and of course, the boat blew up in extreme conditions, 23 knots of true wind. They took on a manoeuvre that, in hindsight, was not the right call. But they got great resources, and they'll be pushing. Clearly, Terry Hutchinson, a great leader. Just listening to the press conference that he gave, and little communication I've had with him on the side, he gets it. It's not about, is there anyone to blame? That's not the issue. What's the roadmap forward? What do we learn from it? And that's leadership. And Dean, he's just got to obviously just get into it, race the boat at maximum performance. Forget about the issues that's happened in the past in terms of the boat obviously capsizing, but learn from it clearly, and they'll learn in terms of their communication as well. So a lot of it at this stage, once hopefully the packaging is there and they can solve any electronic issues that they have, because it would appear it's not the boat building, it's the electronic reinstallation that's the key. If they can get the bugs out of it, then a lot of it will be the psychology between the ears, staying calm and cool and being able to execute. And that's really the game now. We saw a couple of, I think, bad tacks in that first beat. I suspect that's like a pressure environment with both teams, certainly at the top part of that first beat to windward. And it's now, it's game on. And that's when the pressure, that's when the real champions, if they can bring that team together, they'll be moving into a world of calmness and a world of slow motion. such that the decisions come at these guys, particularly the skipper and tactician, and then for skipper, they can make decisions at their own time instead of the pressure increasing the environment such that they feel that they've got to make a decision without fully having all the information available and not being in control of their environment. So it's a really interesting space that they're entering. So time will tell. That's the world of anything at the top level of international competition, whether it's the Olympic Games or America's Cup or whatever.
Indeed. And as you say, time will tell, but psychology is incredibly important. Today is not the end for Luna Rossa Prada Pirelli, but it was definitely a must-win situation in terms of continuing on and giving themselves valuable time in terms of innovation. You've been in must-win situations before. Do you want to talk me through what's the way that you deal with that, and how do you get through that scenario, and how do you lead your team to bring out the best?
Yeah. Well, we heard a little bit from, I think, Jimmy Spittle and Ben in some of the comms leading into today's racing. The whole key in this stuff is not to be dwelling on the consequences of winning or losing. It's pretty straightforward. When I say all you've got to do, what you've got to do is execute on the day be in the moment, to the exclusion of all the consequences of winning or failure. The consequences of being a hero or a bum. There's not much in between in any of this stuff when the world is watching. So then it's a case of being calm. And I saw, it was really interesting. I saw Ben, heard him on the intercom just after they finished. Settle down, boys. In other words, he's been there, done that. A long way to go. We've just won a boat race. That's fine. A long way to go. That's typical of a world champion, and that's typical of anyone who can execute under extreme pressure when it really counts. So the key with high performance is the ability to make the right decisions at the right time, anywhere around the world at your own volition. And we will be seeing that within the world of America's Cup. Lots of decisions. Even though these races are only 20 minutes long, I would suggest that that Ben and Jimmy and whoever have to make at least 500 split-second decisions in a 20-minute race. The question is getting more of those decisions right compared to wrong, and that includes obviously the steering of the boat, the ability to tack and jibe the boat, but also the understanding the wind shifts, the pressure, how far do you go, sailing on the edge of the pressure relative to sailing through a wind shift, all of these things, the number of tacks that you make coming into the top mark, lots and lots, it's a complex sport. So then if the afterguard, really we're talking about the afterguard, that's correct, are working in this calm state where everything is relatively slow motion. To the punter, it's like what happened. But for these guys, when they're at the top of their game, in the zone as we call it, then it becomes easy, and that's what we're seeing with these top operators.
100%.
Interesting stuff.
Oh, I know, and I'm not sure if you've heard. We probably have. Sir Donald Bradman used to say that when the ball came at him, it was about this big. It wasn't that it slowed down; it was that it got larger. And so I'm sure that everybody sees it in their own way, and that's part of the psychology as well as how you celebrate a win. How do you see that? Well, winning today wasn't winning the cup. And as far as Ben's concerned, there's no second. He's not been afraid to say that. So, I mean, he's an incredibly strong competitor. He's won gold medals, as you said, 4 of them, 1 silver. He's won a match racing world championship when he didn't place anywhere the year prior to that. And now he's on the mission for the cup. Do you think he can do it?
Any of these guys can do it. Ben is tough. He doesn't understand how to give up. He had a hard time in Bermuda. He resurrected himself, got some new funding, and he's into it. Grant him, I think this is his 11th America's Cup, and he's the CEO of the INEOS project. But, all these other syndicates are very, very well, so the quality of these people. So can he win it? Of course he can win it.
Yeah.
He's got to beat the Italians in the New York Yacht Club. He knows that. And of course, then they've got to go in and beat the Kiwis on the home waters. A long way to go, but you talk about an opportunity of a lifetime. He's got it. They've gone from feather duster to a hero at the moment, undefeated, amongst the challenges. I think it was fairly well understood, and Ben's the first to say that, is that they've got a long way to go to get up to the Kiwi performance, pure straight line performance. But you have to think that all this close racing, the huge amount of knowledge coming off the racetrack and into the computers for their designers and scientists and so on to analyse, that's worth gold. And unlike the so-called old days where it's like more of a witchcraft in terms of performance changes and so-called tuning, there's a wonderful thing, boat speed. It rhymes with bullshit. It's interesting stuff. And a guy called Gary Hood, a long time ago, he wrote a book called Go for Gold, and the first chapter is BS. Boat speed equals bullshit. Well, because there's so much mystique about this thing called boat speed. However, with this software that they've got now and the algorithms that are finely tuned, then it's a new game of performance prediction. We're now moving the world of Formula One motor racing where, these cars come out of the design studios for the following year and they're faster than what they were in the previous year. Interesting enough, like within the world of Ferrari and McLaren, the only component invariably that's not changed from the beginning of this race season to the finish is the steering wheel. Everything else is redesigned and changed and upgraded. And these boats are being upgraded all the time based on the performance predictions in the computers. And feedback, incidentally, it's not mumbo jumbo, feedback from the race course and the training. And that's where these guys come in as well. Ben and these guys, Giles and all these guys, will be coming back and advising, for example, Grant and the design team, how the boat feels, what this thing called feel is about. And the accuracy of that feedback is extremely important to be able to upgrade the design information and the forward projection of how these boats can be fine-tuned to take it to a new speed regime. So it's these things are team projects, and it's all revolves around trust. Without trust, you have nothing. That's based on integrity and honesty and clarity of communication. We see the trust between Giles and Ben. These guys are blood brothers now. They'll live and die for each other, literally.
Sailing's interesting like that. And I was going to ask, what you think about how close sailing seems to be getting to F1 at the moment. And we see that in crossover with INEOS Team UK, with Mercedes, and with Luna Rossa Prada Pirelli for their namesake. I mean, there's a big crossover now into the motorsport field. Do you think that's going to result in even faster changes and development in our sport? I mean, they're now talking about time. I think, go back about 25, 30 years, you wouldn't give up racing experience for anything. But now they're saying they can make much bigger gains off the water because of all of the analysis tools that they have. It's changing the Cup.
It is, and that's why these things are so much faster than they were even 5 years ago compared to 20 years ago. And that's utilising, technology, and that's just that application of technology. So yes, these boats now, the flying boats, they're ground effect vehicles. They're using just like airplanes that were designed just before World War II, bombers. They're surface effect planes. The Germans led the world in that space, getting more pressure off the water and using less fuel, could fly further. These, particularly the latest generation, the Kiwi boat in particular, it's using the ground effect off the water as, to lift the boat, and so you have less drag, presumably coming from the foils, to keep the boat flying. So again, this is an early stage of evolution from what I can see. And again, as I say, in 10 years' time, and certainly 20 years' time, we'll look back on today and tomorrow as thinking, gee, this is just the start of a journey. Pretty exciting stuff.
It's so exciting. And I think the racing today as well, that was match racing. And as we spoke about earlier, it was like one design racing. It was incredible. And there's so many people saying hello to you right now, John, and thanking you for your contribution to yachting. So, I mean, it's endless. But when you started racing, I mean, you've seen how much these boats have changed. From wood to fiberglass to steel in between to carbon to foiling, monohulls, multi-hulls. There's been so many changes. I mean, do you have a favourite phase, or do you think that's yet to come?
I think it's just people say, oh, what about the old boats? Wouldn't it be beautiful? The 12-meter class that I raced. Well, they were 20-ton machines that never, the fastest we could go was about 12 knots, and before we're about to sink, with the stern wave about to engulf the boat going downwind, and in a force 5 storm. And these boats are, they're sailing 3 to 4 times faster than the wind. There's no way that the America's Cup can go back to the old world. How embarrassing would it be to be sailing upwind and you have a wind foiler sailing circles around your America's Cup boat, or a kid and a moth foiling, going round and around. You just can't do it. So these, the America's Cup's all about the cutting edge of technology. And the beautiful thing I'm seeing is that it's all come, these design developments, the curves are coming together from all around the world and coming out pretty similar in overall performance. And that just shows the sophistication of each of these projects. They're all running at about, maybe in the order of 200 million euro, not the New Zealanders. But put it in context, that's overspread over 3 years. That's about 1/3 of an F1 budget. So there's a lot to be learned from the world of Formula One, which are ground effect machines as well, with their wings and so on. And they're going faster and faster every year, even though people say they can't. In fact, some of the organisers try to slow the cars down, make it less expensive. But each year they get faster. A beautiful story is Ayrton Senna joined the McLaren team many years ago. And according to my good friend Ekram Sami, he said that Ekram got into the cockpit of that McLaren car and with one lap gave more accurate feedback to the design engineers than anyone else that they'd ever worked with. In other words, the man was a genius in interpreting the performance of the vehicle that he had, the motor car, and feeding it back. Well, this is so when we talk about technology with these America's Cup projects, part of the team environment are those guys out on the water feeding accurate information back to the designers and design engineers, compared to just going sailing and giving a whole bunch of noise back. So you've got all the stats coming off the boat in performance, but part of it is like Ben Ainsley, it doesn't feel right, or Jimmy, it doesn't feel right. Those types of accurate feedbacks are gold, in addition to all the so-called technology that the design engineers and think tankers have got available to them. And that won't change. And the same as F1, super sophisticated, but that closed loop feedback from the driver back to the pit is fundamental to continue this development curve that we talk about.
100%. And I think that's the benefit of them all being commed up and having their links in. You can hear the feedback coming from every single sailor to review later. And then we saw with the issue when there was a card played for the first time in America's Cup history to have a postponement by Sir Ben Ainsley. He played his card to have his 15 minutes when they had an issue with their hydraulics on their Cunningham. Yeah. And did you see the guy on board with the full camera setup and the headpiece on board? And he was obviously talking back to the base to let them know what the issue was ahead of time, or potentially what they could fix back to the shore crew. It was absolutely amazing. It's incredible.
And in the world of F1, that would go straight back to the UK or Italy, where they'd have a bank of computer specialists and design engineers working around the clock to solve the problem as well.
It's just phenomenal. I'm
not sure that they had that in this situation with these teams here, although maybe they do. Maybe they're going back to their main base as well, into the UK or the US or whatever. But pretty cool stuff.
It'd be interesting to know. And I'm thankful to COVID for one thing, and that has been my newfound love for the F1. I watch every single one now, which is quite fun. And I think that's actually set me up quite well for this America's Cup. I now know who Ben's talking about when he thanks everybody from Mercedes. So I personally feel like it's crossing over and really pushing us, and probably also in the psychology, the professionalism of the teams, and the innovation. It's just really taking us to another level.
Well, the only thing you can't buy in sport is time. You've got to front. And it's the same with the world of F1 or any of this stuff, the world of Olympics. I've just retired as chairman of Swimming Australia, the Olympic team and so on. And okay, so hopefully the Olympics will happen in July, August in Tokyo. it's going to be tough. But the point is that our swimmers are just going for it because they know they've got to perform if indeed, that's the case. The same with the World of America's Cup. The New York Yacht Club, Tyrion and Glenn and so on. They've just got to. Well, hopefully they'll get out there and then they can really optimize the performance of that project, and they'll be trying their tail off to make that happen. But it gets back to great planning, and ultimately it's going to be the teamwork to pull that together.
Fantastic. And as you mentioned, you've been a leader of many great teams, and I'm so thankful that you were able to join us today. Hopefully we can catch up with you later on in the Cup as things progress to get your beautiful insights and knowledge, and maybe we'll see another team completely change their setup and come through too. I think anything can change with these systems that they've got and the developments they can make over time.
No worries, Nick, and keep doing a great job. I think what you're doing for the world of sailing is fantastic. So well done.
Thank you so much, John. And there's so much love coming in for you right now. I will make sure that we put some of those questions aside for next time we get you on the show, and hopefully we can run through them then. Thank you so much.
My pleasure. Cool. Bye-bye.
Wow. That was so fun. Absolutely love JB. He's such a good friend and such an amazing ambassador for our sport. So we thank him. He has a function to go to, but he still took the time to talk to us. So I really appreciate that. And that's why I can't really have time for questions today. I'm really sorry. But he is going to join us again at the end of the semi-finals. So then we'll talk a little bit more then with John Bertrand on his insights, and we will have quite a number of other guests joining us over the next little while. So the format practically on race days will be to touch base with Tor in the village and to see what's happening there and get a bit of a weather update. And then in the evenings, we'll have our debrief shows with experts. So I'll just have a little bit of a look through your comments, everybody thanking JB, and I'll make sure I pass these on to him. He really loves getting your comments. And last time I had him on the show, I actually made a page from when you guys told me where you were when Australia won the America's Cup, and I actually sent that page to him. So if you guys want to send me more info on where you were, then I'm happy to add it to that page and keep it going. So yeah, it's been such a fantastic day of racing, and then to finish it off with JB was great. And we were texting while racing was happening. And on that, let's have a little bit of a review of just what went down today. In case you missed it, spoiler alert, we had a little bit of damage or an issue on board INEOS Team UK.
Request a delay, please.
Then the first ever delay requested and card played.
INEOS Team UK, we copy that, and we'll add a 15-minute delay to the start clock, making the new start time 17:15.
So INEOS Team UK had a 15-minute delay. Each boat in each round of the competition gets the opportunity to have a 15-minute delay. So they actually played that card today for the first time in America's Cup history. It's probably what gave them just enough time to get themselves sorted. And off we went with a big delay. Well done to the race committee for getting the race happening in the first place. And off we went. Bit of a pre-start luff. We thought Jimmy wanted to lead in. He did. But you might have heard there Giles say they're a little early from onboard INEOS Team UK. And what was a powerful situation for Luna Rossa Prada Pirelli leading back into the start line became a point of weakness. And basically we saw INEOS Team UK ran in front of them. The next work, there were so many crosses. It was just crazy. Fantastic race. 9 lead changes all up, so they tell us. There's Luna Rossa leading at the end of leg 3. And then we saw a big split. And INEOS took the lead again. There was 1 second in the split here.
Protest.
We saw the port and starboard cross heading into the finish line. It was so close, no penalty. And that was the win.
Awesome. Oh, look, it's a great moment for the team because we've obviously had a tough start, a tough build-up to this competition. So I'm incredibly proud of everyone. That said, we know we've still got a long way to go in this road. So whilst we've got ourselves in the Prada Cup final, it's just one step along the road, and now we've got to focus on trying to win that. And then after that, the Cup. So one step at a time.
One step at a time, indeed. And there was the owner, of course, of INEOS, who's been a big backer to that campaign. The scores: INEOS Team UK defeated New York Yacht Club in the Ghost Start. Luna Rossa Prada Pirelli was defeated by INEOS Team UK. And New York Yacht Club American Magic was defeated in the Ghost Race by Luna Rossa Prada Pirelli. That would leave Luna Rossa Prada Pirelli on 3 wins and 2 losses, technically. So by the indication of the overall Prada Cup round robins with 6 wins to the UK, that would indicate that it was Luna Rossa Prada Pirelli's decision not to go out on the water tomorrow. You can't blame them. They only have a week, essentially, or less than, to prep, 5 days to prep for the semi-finals against New York Yacht Club American Magic, who are going to have a cause and a lot of fire in their belly to try and fight back and be the boat that progresses to the final to take on INEOS Team UK. And then we'll see the fight to the death to see who the challenger is to face up against Emirates Team New Zealand. But it's 3 weeks now for INEOS in terms of development time. Absolutely crazy. Just going to check out some of your comments. I really think Australia is the sleeping giant in the America's Cup. We just need to spark the commercial backing. Couldn't agree more. My goodness, don't we have an amazing lot of Australian sailors and mentors. I mean, from JB, Andrew Palfrey will join us in a few days. Hopefully Tom Slingsby will join us if he can find the time. I know he's really busy with the announcement of the Sail GP. Unbelievable. It's we have such an amazing talent pool, and not just of men, of women. Hopefully we'll have Katie Spithill and Stacey Jackson on the show in the coming days. And, of course, support crews, volunteers, everything that makes our sport so phenomenal. I have another question here. Amanda Stott, why are the grinders constantly grinding, even on a straight line? Doesn't look like trim on my little screen. Amanda, you are correct, and we have spoken about this at length. The grinders are grinding to store energy, essentially, which helps to power all of the systems on board, from computers to hydraulics to trimming as well when they need it. So they grind to store the energy, so they grind all the time. Do we have any other questions before we end the day and let everybody in New Zealand keep partying? Because I think INEOS Team UK might have their first day off tomorrow for a very long time. I don't think they've had a day off over Christmas at all. They've been working so hard. So that's well earned to them and well done on progressing to the final. Peter Ham says, I thought about him while trucking an old Hunter 32 Vision with a wing keel. The boat sails surprisingly well. There you go, Peter Ham. Fantastic. And Jody Shields says, I think today's racing took the current AC to a new level. So close, and plenty of tactics and lead changes. Cannot wait for next weekend. I completely agree. It's been so awesome. And here's the shot of INEOS Team UK enjoying the win. And you may have seen on my Facebook page, make sure you go check it out. This is INEOS Team UK on their way to the bar to have a drink and have an excellent day off tomorrow. There they are. Thank you, Carlo Berlenghi, for these beautiful shots, and to the America's Cup for keeping me on as a non-rights broadcast holder, even though I am a little bit abroad. Thanks to Tor, who is working down in New Zealand as well. Very thankful to have her working for us. Now, here are the pairings for the semi-final, in case you haven't seen them. I'll just also open them up on my screen so I can read them with you. Race 1 and 2 are on January 29th. It will be Luna Rossa Prada Pirelli versus New York Yacht Club. So they've got the port entry and then New York from the port side. And that racing will continue through until February 2nd, depending on the winds. Oh my gosh, what a great day. Loved every second. Fantastic to have you guys with us as always. Don't forget to comment. Don't forget to check out the polls. We've got quite a bit happening on our Facebook page at Sailor Girl HQ. You can also find us on Instagram, and we are posting stories there direct from the village. On Twitter, I'm live tweeting every race, so I'd love to join you there. And on YouTube, we're also posting these videos if you prefer to watch YouTube there. And a shout out to all of our YouTube subscribers. Lovely to have you with us. That's Chat and Wrap for tonight. I'll see you tomorrow to go through the press conference and a few other things, maybe bright and early, and we'll see how the week progresses. So great to see you all. My name's Nick Douglas for Adventures of a Sailor Girl. Thanks so much to JB for joining us, and we'll see you very soon.